Small businesses fighting to survive the impacts of COVID-19 are looking to federal relief money for help. Join us with SBA Director Thomas Stith for more on how it works next on Black Issues Forum. Welcome to Black Issues Forum. I'm Deborah Holt-Noel. Since the shutdown of businesses to help contain the spread of COVID-19, the federal government has issued more than $2 trillion in relief for individuals, institutions, and small businesses. In a moment, we'll talk to the district head of the U.S. Small Business Administration. But first, I'd like to welcome a small business owner in Durham via Skype. Leonardo Williams is co-owner of the only restaurant in Durham that features Zimbabwean cuisine, Swelly's Kitchen and Catering. And he, like many restaurateurs, is fighting to survive this pandemic. Leonardo, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you just give our audience a snapshot of the before and after of COVID-19? Tell us about your restaurant before and what you've done to pivot and what you're doing right now.
So first, we're the only Zimbabwean restaurant in the United States that's full service and authentic the way we are. And what we base our restaurant on is being able to serve our community. Like most restaurants, we have our hard times, and there was a time where we fed 1,000 homeless people, and that started our way of giving back to the community. However, being a year and a half in, we were just on a trajectory to start to make a profit, and then came COVID. So we've maintained our principle of giving back to our community, but things have totally shifted in regards to our business model. So this is learning on the job. Something we never thought we'd have to face, but we have no choice but to be resilient about it.
So now that you are pivoting, what are you doing? What are your daily operations like?
So now we are having to be much more sensitive to practicality. For example, our normal business hours are 11 to 3 and 5 to 10 p.m. Now we shifted about a couple of weeks ago to just 12 to 8. And unfortunately, we were just not getting the business to sustain, and we were paying out more in labor than we were able to, than we were making to pay them. So we had to decrease the hours. And actually, today is our first day changing the business hours to from what it was to 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., which is where we are normally getting our getting orders in. So we're now having to be sensitive to business coming in, and we're changing the business operations to match that.
And I imagine you, like a lot of restaurants, are providing the curbside service, and
yes,
so people can still order.
Yeah, we're doing curbside service. We're doing takeout, so people can come up in their cars and we'll take it out. So when we see a car pull up, we'll go outside, or people can come up to the takeout table if they pre-order and prepay. And we're also doing delivery. And we were in a very desperate situation. So we had to extend our delivery up to 25 miles to incorporate the Raleigh demographic as well.
That's incredible. And like you said, you are a part of the community. So you're continuing to serve the community even right now. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when the McDougal terrorist crisis happened in Durham, where there were nearly 700 people evacuated due to CO2 leakage, we were the first restaurant to jump in and feed about 630 meals a day. And we did that for a few weeks and about a month, I'd say, bringing volunteers in to help serve. And we went from serving to coordinating other restaurants and caterers and churches and organizations. Now, we took a break from it, and now COVID has happened, and the crisis hasn't changed for many of those families. So we are back to serving the families that are still remaining in the hotels, which is about 200 meals a day. And we're also serving about 50 to 70 meals to the homeless downtown Durham. So once we feed the families in the hotels, we make extra and we take it downtown, and they look forward to us coming each day.
And we know that the federal relief program provided assistance for small businesses like yourself to the tune of about $377 billion. Have you been able to take advantage of any of that relief money, applied for it as yet?
So this is where our anxiety comes into play. We've applied for every possible loan, grant, whatever it is out there. We've applied for it all. However, we're anxious because we have no idea where we are in the status of the application. We haven't heard anything back. We haven't received any assistance yet, and we're still getting emails from our landlord saying, "Give us the keys or give us the rent," and that's scary, you know. So we're just waiting. They tell us not to call the bank, but I mean, you still want to just call the bank and say, "Hey, did we do everything right? You know, what's the status, or should we resubmit?" It's just confusing, and it's causing some anxiety here. So we don't know what's next, and we don't know when it's coming.
As leaders consider ways to help small businesses such as yourself, do you think that is there something that they're missing? I mean, you mentioned that you've got landlords still, who need to be paid. Is there anything else, any other provision that they could institute that would really relieve small business owners like yourself?
Well, we can start with criteria. There are so many small businesses that don't even meet the criteria of what the federal government is asking for, which is why I'm working with a team of community leaders here now in Durham to create our own local small business fund. It's called the Durham Small Business Recovery and Relief Fund. And we are making some true strides on that. And so I think that's how we're going to be able to take care of one another. Just making sure that the criteria is reflecting the actual small businesses in need, and that way we're not leaving anyone out.
What are your colleagues, what are your other small business owners sharing with you, and how can you I know it's not a comparison, but what are they going through in comparison to what you're going through and experiencing right now?
Yeah, so it's quite a diversified sense of struggle. However, we all are consistent in when are we go. Well, it's about keeping our staff employed. If we can't keep our staff employed, then they are going to have to file for unemployment. But that runs out at some point in time. We have no idea how long this is going to last. The other is some people have mortgages, and some people have rent. Excuse me, we actually have rent, so that puts us in a different situation of ownership. Whereas some folks have mortgages and their banks may or may not be working with them. So some have more assets to leverage, some don't, like myself. We're a new restaurant. We had no reserves. So we are a bit more anxious than some others. Some people have closed completely. And there was some advocacy to say, hey, let's just close all restaurants completely until it's over. Well, folks like us were like, wait a minute, we don't share the same struggle. We need to be open, but at the same time, it's a rock and hard place because while we're considered essential, we don't want to encourage folks to come out and be out and about, going to the restaurants to get this and get that, which is why we're delivering.
Tell us about some of the things that you're doing to make sure that your employees are safe and provided for.
Yeah, so we've gone down to one staff member in the back of the house and one staff member in the front of the house. And so they have the restaurant space to themselves. We have a 4,000 square foot restaurant, so we're not having to worry too much about close interactions. Where we did have to take some strict precautions was having our volunteers come in the morning to help with meal prep, and we were able to then reduce that down to 2 or 3 people, and we use the entire back half of the restaurant. So we have stations that we work in, so no one is in close quarters.
Well, it sounds like a true challenge, and it certainly is a true challenge for restaurants like yourself, for other small business owners, and I just wish you the very best of luck in surviving this pandemic and appreciate you sharing your
Thank you
story
so
with
much.
us. Leo is like a lot of small business owners out there who are in need of federal financial assistance. Right now, I'd like to welcome our second guest, Thomas Stith, who is the Director of the Small Business Administration for the North Carolina District. Thomas, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here.
Deborah, is glad to be with you to discuss the various initiatives that SBA has to support our small business community.
And there are a lot of them under the CARES Act, which was signed into law March 27th. There are a number of provisions, especially for small businesses. The entire act accounted for $2 trillion, but for small businesses, that amount was I believe the amount $377 billion for small businesses, and that money is available in different kinds of packages. Let's talk about those different products. Open up with the very popular PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. Who's eligible? How does that work?
Yes, Deborah, the Paycheck Protection Program is funded at $350 billion. It is really guided toward small businesses or nonprofits. That includes faith-based organizations as well. The design of the initiative is to encourage small business owners to maintain their current employees. It's a way to keep your staff employed during this pandemic. So with the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, the maximum loan is $10 million for a 2-year term at 1% interest. But the key component is that it provides for a forgivable clause or forgivable amount of the loan. If the small business or nonprofit utilizes the proceeds during the 8 weeks following the receipt of the funding for payroll, and we're asking for at least 75% be utilized for payroll. And then other eligible expenses are utilities, rent, and lease payments. That combined expenditure will be reduce the amount of the overall loan, so that it creates a forgivable nature for the payroll protection program. Right now, and as we speak today in North Carolina, we had over $5.7 billion already approved for about 24,000 businesses in North Carolina. So it's meeting a significant need, not only here in North Carolina, but nationally as well.
That's a tremendous amount, 5.7 billion, and so the money is probably being accounted for very rapidly. So anyone who is interested in applying and taking advantage needs to go ahead and do so. And let's talk a little bit about the bridge loans that are available. What are those, and how are those different?
Right. We have two categories that can assist existing small business owners that have a relationship with SBA. The Express Bridge loan is up to $25,000. That's a reduced processing time, if you please, because it's designed to really provide economic support for a small business while they're waiting for other assistance. So those loans are designed for businesses that have some relationship with the SBA lender. They're up to $25,000, and that's another avenue that small businesses and nonprofits can pursue now.
And that's really key to kind of focus on. And I've heard that some small businesses are frustrated because there are banks who have relationships with other businesses and they're getting the priority.
Yeah, the challenge now is clearly there's a significant demand. There are over 900,000 small businesses in North Carolina. They employ 1.7 million individuals. So as small businesses approach their lender, they first need to determine, are they an SBA lender, and do they have availability for a different applicant? Our North Carolina district office maintains a list on our website of all lenders that have a relationship with SBA. So if your current lender is not available, then we encourage you, small businesses, to utilize that list to identify other banks or credit unions that are available now. We just recently had PayPal sign up, so we're signing up new lenders and increasing the amount of options for individuals.
And I would imagine that the collection of small business owners, all of them certainly don't have this relationship with the Small Business Administration. Can you speak to, what percentage or how likely it is that a small business, say, for example, a barber or a beauty shop, would have that relationship and be able to count on that at this time?
There may be some that do not have a banking relationship, but typically a small business, even your corner barber shop or your small neighborhood restaurant, would have a relationship with maybe even a community bank. It doesn't have to be one of the large national lenders. So we believe that the number of lenders in the community will be responsive to the small business needs.
And can you talk a little bit more about nonprofits such as churches? I know that some might be concerned about their eligibility, and do they have to prove eligibility?
No, churches are faith-based organizations have been deemed eligible not only for the Paycheck Protection Program, but also, and I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, our economic injury disaster loan. But faith-based organizations are eligible for both and encourage both to apply.
And let's go ahead and talk about those, the economic injury disaster loans. What are those, who's eligible, and how does that work?
Those loans are designed, and they were actually in effect before the CARES Act was passed. North Carolina was declared, and this is the first time in our history in the state that all 100 counties were declared because of a virus. And so those loans are designed to provide general operating expenses for small businesses and nonprofits, faith-based organizations. They can be up to $2 million over a 30-year term. For small businesses, the interest rate is 3.75%, and for nonprofits, 2.75%. And as a part of the CARES Act, an additional benefit was added to the economic injury disaster loans, and that's for the ability to request an emergency advance. And those advances can be up to $10,000. So a small business is evaluated and to determine, typically it's $1,000 per employee, to qualify for the potential of up to $10,000. So that is another tool that's available for small businesses to provide operating resources for the company.
And how about those businesses that are finding themselves in the rears for existing loans? Is there an allowance or a provision for that?
There's some deferment that is currently available with existing SBA loan holders. And as importantly, there is debt relief. Again, a part of the CARES Act was passage of funding so that existing SBA loan holders do not have to pay their principal and interest for 6 months. SBA will pay those payments for existing loan holders. So there is really several initiatives that are geared to provide that economic support for small businesses during this time.
And how about an unemployment insurance and any kinds of extensions for unemployment insurance?
Right, a significant role for federal funding, and that's my lane that I'll try to stay in, is additional $600 per individual that apply for unemployment insurance. The unemployment insurance is administered through your state, and so obviously North Carolina is administering that now with significant interest in that as well. So we have an additional $600 in federal funding that will go in addition to any state unemployment insurance that a person may qualify for.
And Thomas, can you share a little bit for those businesses who may already have had to lay off employees, but they are applying for the assistance? We know that a lot of it is to make sure that businesses are continuing to employ people, but some have already had to lay off folks. Can they still apply for this money?
There are actually two options, as we just talked about unemployment insurance. Obviously, those employees, if they are displaced and unemployed, are eligible to apply. But with the Paycheck Protection Program, that is designed to not only maintain staffing levels, but it does have an opportunity to quickly bring those individuals back, because to trigger the forgivability clause, it looks at that 8 weeks. So if you've had to make the hard decision as a small business owner to lay your staff off, the Paycheck Protection Program provides funding so that you can bring those individuals back.
And at this point, is there talk about additional federal assistance coming down? Because I'm sure that, once again, those funds got applied for early and much of it is gone. Do you have a sense of how much is left and if there's going to be another disbursement?
Yes, there's discussion already in Washington that Congress recognizes the popularity and success of the Paycheck Protection Program. Right now, we're at about $290 billion that has been approved out of a $349 billion budget. So we are quickly utilizing, which is a good thing. I mean, we're getting it to small businesses that need that critical economic infusion. So Congress is discussing a potential, they've discussed a figure of 250 billion additional dollars, but that's still going through the legislative process. So won't try to predict what will happen, but the need is clear, and we certainly hope there will be additional resources for our small business community.
How about folks who, I understand there is a requirement for having completed certainly your taxes for 2018. If there are folks out there who, for whatever reason, had extensions or just haven't submitted, is there any kind of assistance or allowance or provision for them to apply for this money without their taxes being completed or while their taxes are being completed?
Know, the two flagship initiatives, if you please, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Loan, don't require that. We realize that, in particular with 2019 taxes, with the extension of the filing date, that individuals may not have completed their tax return. So both applications have been streamlined, even though there's significant demand and it's taking time to process them. So if you don't have your taxes currently prepared, there will be basic financial information that's requested, and the application will be able to move forward.
And I'll bet a lot of this information is difficult to sift through. Is there any kind of assistance to help people kind of wade through the CARES Act and figure out where they fall?
Sure. A couple of resources. First and foremost, SBA. We have a very robust website, sba.gov. /coronavirus. That's sba.gov/coronavirus. SBA Direct can assist. The loans for the economic injury disaster loans are made direct with SBA through a web portal. The Paycheck Protection Program, as we've discussed, potential borrowers will work with community-based lenders. But we also have resource partners across the state that are supported by SBA, our small business and technology and development centers that are located throughout our university system. Obviously, we're all working virtually now, but they're working direct and virtually with small businesses across the state. We have 4 women business centers in North Carolina, in Asheville, Charlotte, in the Raleigh-Durham area, and Fayetteville that work obviously specifically with women-owned businesses, but are open to all businesses. A Veterans Business Center in Fayetteville that specifically focuses on our veteran community. So not only SBA can provide that technical assistance, our resource partners SCORE, there's 10 chapters across North Carolina that are available as well for virtual technical support, in addition to what SBA provides specifically. Our main office is in Charlotte, but we have office in Raleigh, Wilmington, and Asheville. So there is support, clearly significant demand, but there is various support that we can bring to bear.
And that's good to hear, especially understanding that it's located on campuses. You mentioned the universities, and I would imagine also HBCUs included in that, many of whom have small business centers and can offer that support. What are you hearing back from the community, from the small business community, about what more they may need?
Well, right now, the immediate need are some of the initiatives that I've outlined. Small businesses are trying to maintain their employees. They're trying to maintain their business model. Many have adjusted given our current environment. So now they need economic support for their business operations. And as we move forward, clearly certainty in the marketplace, but as we all are, they're taking very strong precautions to be safe and to be careful as we continue to work through the pandemic.
Well, we definitely appreciate you coming out and sharing the information. Is there anything more you'd like to add for folks in terms of where to find this information? Just remind folks of the website, perhaps.
Sure. The SBA website that will list all of the different initiatives is sba.gov/coronavirus. We encourage individual businesses and nonprofits to first look at that website. That will give an idea of the various programs that are available. The economic injury disaster loan, again, direct with SBA. With the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program, you have your local banks or credit unions with SBA guaranteeing those loans. So just encourage small businesses to pursue the various avenues that are available now, and know that SBA is working diligently to work with them to support them during this time. This is not only an economic issue, this is a community issue. This has impacted communities across North Carolina, and the SBA is going to be very diligent to be supportive as we recover.
Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And we appreciate Thomas Stith joining us for such an important conversation. For more information about today's program, you can visit us online at video.unctv.org/BIF. For Black Issues Forum, I'm Deborah Holt-Noel, encouraging you to practice safety as you go about your day. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.